Well, good evening from San Antonio, Texas. This is Matt Shearer, the author of LinkedIn for Military, and I'm joined by my good friend Terry Knorick, who works for Christus Health Center, and we're here to help you look at just the basic part of the LinkedIn profile. And I know I talked to you, Leslie, and we're going to do a second webinar next week, which is more in depth, like on the connection piece and the interactivity piece and the research piece. But today we're just going to look at the basics. So when you leave this, you'll have a pretty good idea of what you need to create a LinkedIn profile. Tracy, you have anything to add to what I just said there? And would you like to introduce yourself even more? Hello, Teresa.
Okay, I'm here. Yes, hi there, everyone. Sorry, I was on mute, so I was letting Matt talk. I'm Teresa Knorick, and I work for Christus Health. But first and foremost, I am a military spouse of 30 plus years. Don't know, Leslie and Jennifer, what your employment path has been, but mine has been definitely up and down with part-time, full-time, night work, homeschooling, just depended where we were at. So a lot of different jobs, but I'm here just to offer some help. I originally started in San Antonio with the USO under the transition program, and now I work with Christus Health helping folks for their new TRICARE option. So glad to help and glad to be here.
Thank you, Terry. So the first step, Leslie and Jennifer, do you have a LinkedIn account? Let us know, because if you do, we can skip this, but if not, let's go through these steps just to be safe.
I do not have a LinkedIn account.
Okay, so this is what you need to do. You go to linkedin.com, you follow the instructions on this slide, and then you want to make sure you sign in with your email account. So like mine would be mattshearer@gmail.com, or whatever you want to use. We kind of like Google, but we're not saying that's the only way to do that. But what will happen is once you get messages or other interests, people will come back to you and say, hey, Leslie, thanks so much for sharing this with me. So that's the first step. Any questions so far?
No, I'm doing it as you are speaking.
Okay. Then you're going to get a couple simple questions. And my son Pete helped me with this, and I think if you look at that in that boldface where it says, don't worry too much about what you put in your field, this screen is really just a means for LinkedIn to put you in a general box or designation. Oops, hang on a second, I jumped too fast, hang on a second. Okay. This is a screen that I really, really want to emphasize, and that is when LinkedIn asks you to add your email contacts to see you already know on LinkedIn, I would say do not do that. And here's why. Because you're going to get a generic message that says, Matt Shearer has just joined LinkedIn and he would like to connect with you. And number one, it irritates people. Number two, most people don't connect that way. We're going to show you next week how to connect properly. So right below the continue button, there's a skip. So please skip that step. In fact, if LinkedIn comes to you and says, hey, would you like us to change your headline or something like that? Again, say no, thank you, and move on to the next part of it, because they'll try to be overly helpful, and I'm not a big fan of some of the things they do to help people. So just remember the skip button is an option, and you should read all the fine print. And then when you get finished at the end of all these simple little steps, you'll see something like this, based on what you put as your interest there. So, questions, ladies? Thoughts?
Not yet. You're going through it perfectly. I'm also setting it up as we're going through.
Okay. I'll wait till you get to that, okay?
Yeah.
So I'll give feedback to my son Pete, who helped me design this. We use this depending on who we're teaching. Hello, Kelly. Welcome to our webinar. Okay, I'm going to move on. Okay. What I want you to think about, ladies, is what's your defining your LinkedIn purpose. So let me go through all the other parts you probably hadn't thought about in terms of LinkedIn, and then we can talk about that, okay? So I see 5 things to consider when starting a profile. There's number 1. Here's number 2. Here's number 3. And for those that are watching this in a webinar, I would also add things like RN or other professional certifications that you may have. That's really important. Put that into your profile. We'll talk about that today, and we'll talk about it in more depth next week. I think this is probably the biggest thing I like about LinkedIn, which is searching info on a new career or company. And finally, that's what everybody thinks of LinkedIn. It's all about finding a job, but really, if you do the other 4, the 5th one comes a little bit easier for most people. So, Leslie, what would you think would be your LinkedIn purpose?
For me, at the stage that I am in my life right now, it would be to connect with other military spouses.
Okay. So we'll get to that. I just want you to think about that. Jennifer, if you would unmute yourself, what would you think would be
Probably something very similar on that lines, connecting families with resources, connecting with them. So yeah.
Okay. And Kelly, I've unmuted you and you're allowed to talk. Do you have any ideas about this aspect of it? And
Carly, no, I do not. I am just now tuning in. I had to tend to kiddos.
well, hey, I remember those days. I'm in the waiting to be a grandparent zone, okay? But I do remember those years very well. We'll get back to that, and if you have any questions, please use the chat. And Terry, who's my co-panelist, is helping me keep track of any questions you might have.
Can I chime in for a second when you?
Yes, please.
So you guys are really talking about making those connections with military spouses. It's a little bit different than Facebook. Facebook, you know, you put your family in there. This is a professional way to do it, and LinkedIn is so perfect to widen your horizon, you know, with Hiring Our Heroes and just different organizations where you can find more military spouses. So it keeps it professional. That's just a perfect way to use it.
And I think that's what, I'll chime in real quick. I think that's what I appreciate about the idea of using LinkedIn. I haven't before. I was prior active duty myself years ago. I've been a stay-at-home mom, but I'm now what I would consider a full-time volunteer. So this idea of potentially having a LinkedIn account and possibly using it, not necessarily to navigate a job at this time, but to make connections so that maybe I could in the future, or as Jen was saying, possibly connect spouses to other resources. That's what I'm hoping to potentially use it for, if that is something I can do.
And I'm going to answer this, and I'm going to let Terry answer this. Yes, those are all the things you can do. I always like to talk about the purpose slide, because the purpose slide kind of shows you can do more than just looking for a job. In your case, Leslie, you're more of a mentor to other military spouses, so that's probably a role that you can help some spouses, you know, with their needs. Maybe there's a young officer who's got a wife that's, you know, a nurse, and she's looking for the right opportunity. So I see that as a way that you can be of real value to your Lackland community that way. What do you think, Terry?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think as I use LinkedIn more and more, my time at the USO, I always recommended that people put a LinkedIn profile, and that will allow you to, again, see those organizations, see recruiters, post jobs, see other opportunities that you can pass on to your military spouses that you're mentoring.
So let's move on. Let me get back to my main screen there. So let's just recap real quick. Professional mentors, that's a resource you can find through LinkedIn. Networking, which is kind of difficult now, but I can say that you can do interactive forms of networking through LinkedIn, and we'll talk about more of that next week. This is one of my favorite parts, is research. Leslie, I know you probably got somebody's in high school, is that correct?
I do. I've got a couple in high school.
So I'm also working on some workshops with the NAISD about helping high school juniors and seniors make educated choices about their choice of college or careers. And so that's where I would see research working for your family. Okay. So your oldest, what, a junior or senior?
He's a senior, and then I've got a sophomore who will be a senior or a junior next year, and then I've got a freshman going into a sophomore next year.
So I'd be glad to talk to your son, and I would be glad to talk to your son, the sophomore, when he's 16 years of age, because there's an age limitation on that. But again, this is an aspect of LinkedIn that most people really don't understand. And of course, professional designations and the job opportunities. Okay, folks, what I would like to talk about now is what I call the LinkedIn communication styles. There are two prominent styles that I see on LinkedIn. This is one I call resume speak. And what happens is you give LinkedIn some information and it comes back with a suggested about section like this. And you're going to look like just everybody else. But if you want to be different, we're going to get to that in just a second. Here's another example. And here's somebody that you actually understand what they would like to do with their lives or what their goals are at this point. So, Terry, you remember the good old days when you put 4 quarters into the new slot machine when you're going on vacation and you're hoping to get the local newspaper, right?
Yes. So
I believe a LinkedIn profile is like that newspaper. I used to be a military newspaper editor many, many years ago. And they always talked about above the fold. And so there are 3 things that you need to understand is like your profile's got to be like that headline in the newspaper box. It's got to convey why you want to put money in the machine to buy that newspaper. And so we're going to talk about 3 elements in the rest of the time allotted. We're going to talk about the photo. We're going to talk about the headline. And we're going to talk about the about section. Any questions? All right, moving on. But before we do that, when you get your profile, from time to time, I'd like you to look and ask yourself 3 key questions, right? What does my photo say to others? Does my headline tell my story? And is my summary or about section relevant to those who read it? I recognize we have people that are just starting this, but if you can rethink this in a couple weeks after you got this started, and ladies, I'll be glad to send you the slides that I'm using tonight for your personal use, and we can talk about some more ways that I can be of help to you, but this is really a critical thing that you should review. So let's get to the photo. I've seen photos of all times. Obviously, the professional photo is probably the best, but I also see a lot of photos like this. I call this the gray balloon. Have you seen that, Terry? The gray balloon? And if you're a staffing person, I know at the USO, when people look at that, they go, who is that? And why should I care?
I have a great story about the photo. There was a gentleman who was transitioning out, and he had a photo on LinkedIn, not a professional photo, but it was a decent photo. And he went on an interview and came back and talked to us after the interview at the USO. And he said, he mentioned that the interviewer said, boy, you look really different than you do in your LinkedIn photo. And so we asked him, what does your LinkedIn photo look like? And it was a typical military, no smile, looked actually kind of mean on the photo. And this gentleman, you know him, Andre Alexander, who works for USAA, very nice man, has a beautiful smile, pleasant to everyone. So it wasn't conveying his personality at all. So if you guys obviously want to connect with other military spouses and provide resources, that photo's got to be warm and that somebody wants to talk to you, whether it's in connecting resources or even looking for a job.
I want to add another story to that. I got another war story. So I was helping a guy named Mark. He's a retired 2-star general. Mark was a commander of a pilot training base somewhere north of us. And he showed me 2 pictures. He showed me, and they were not military photos, but they were one was that classic, if you mess up, I'm going to bust you photo. And then he had one with warmth. So obviously the one with warmth was the one I said he should use, but it's part of that culture that military professionals want to use that classic photo that conveys to everyone under them that if they do something dumb that could cause them to get an Article 15, they want to use that. But as Terry just said, that you don't want that. You want something that's warm and helpful. So this is an example of a person that took what I call a low-res photo. And all these are actual photos from people that connected with me. So this is perfect for Facebook or for some other purposes, but not for LinkedIn. Sometimes we see people with more than one photo. And lots of times I see that with military spouses with their better half. And here's the elements you want to think about when you take your photo for LinkedIn. I'm going to show you some simple ways to get that done in just a second. So here's my friend Abel Martinez. He had a gray balloon for a photo. We talked on the phone and then via LinkedIn chats. And I said, Abel, what the heck? Where's your photo? He had a gray balloon. Well, his girlfriend took the photo with an iPhone 8 and he was hired. Sometimes there are career events that you ladies can go to, and I would highly encourage you to do that. But here's a problem with some of these free photos. I'm not going to say anything negative about any organizations, but this is what usually happens. And it's usually with men that can't write well, because I know you ladies have perfect penmanship. My wife always criticizes my ability to write letters, even though I have a degree in education and also a degree in marketing, which says you don't write well. So I think what happens sometimes is people go to one of these events, they sign in, they put their name and their contact info, but the photographer can't read the email address, so it just gets lost in translation. So this is what I would tell you. First of all, write it clearly. Second of all, take a card or contact point from the person taking the pictures. Then, if let's say you were at an event like a month ago, like March the 10th. You went to a career event March the 10th. You had your picture taken, and the photographer said, "I'll get to you in a couple of days." So it's about 3 weeks later, like now, and you say, wait a minute, where's my picture? So this is where I'd write that person back and say, "Hi, I had my picture taken at this event at approximately 2:25 p.m. Could you look for my photo and send it to me? Thank you so much." And if they don't give you a response, let the organizer know, because the organizer just paid them good money to provide that. So any comments there, Terry? I mean, we see that every once in a while.
Yeah, usually the photos come out well, and sometimes they take two pictures, but sometimes even, like you said, taking them on your iPhone will work just as well to get a good picture.
I'm showing you the phases. We start with the iPhone. This is the professional photo. And now we're going to go to, hey, this is what you can get me, honey, for Mother's Day or some other event. I want to get a professional photo. And this costs about $70 at your local JCPenney's.
Even better, hire a military spouse to take your photo.
That's right. There you go. Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Some of them are photographers, and they would probably take amazing photos.
Speaking of which, I am a photographer.
Are you, Kelly?
There you go. Instead of 70, you could do 50 or something and say, hey, I'll do a professional LinkedIn photo or whatever you charge. That's awesome.
I base it off of donations, honestly. I do them every once in a while. It's a business, but I just don't really get into it.
Oh,
Cameras you have?
Jennifer.
What kind of camera do you have, Kelly?
I have a Nikon D810.
Okay. And lighting and all that, you have the sticks for that?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we'll post your information at the end of this webinar on the video. So thank you so much for sharing that. So
Absolutely. Just got to be 6 feet away.
right now you got to be 6 feet away. Yes, that's true. Okay. So what happens in transition classes is they teach people to put a person's profile with the key terms up there underneath the person's name. And I'm going to show you in just a second how to take that information, right, and put it in another place and have the same objective. What the folks at the Department of Labor think is that having it there will help a person get found when they search for them, but as you'll see in a couple minutes, you'll be able to also put that information in the key skills area at the bottom of your about section. So skill style headline, military gobbledygook headline. I'm sure I can see Leslie and Jennifer kind of laughing because they've probably seen headlines like this. And notice the difference between that last slide and this slide. Here's a guy who's actually conveying what he wants to do next. But there's some better way to do this, and I'm going to show you how to get all three basic pictures in just a few minutes, okay? So here's my friend Don Gleason. Here's his title. Here's his second headline. And there's his third headline, his nonverbal headline. So we're going to show you how to update your headline, and here's why. We're going to show you the trick to get 3 headlines. And the problem that I see with LinkedIn is on the desktop, you'll see a little bit of the about section, but with more and more phones getting smaller and more information on it, having a great banner photo with the title and the call to action headline is much better and really tells people what you're all about, okay? So how do we do that? So if you're on your mobile phone, and again, I will send you these slides so you can all get that. And I'll tell you how to do that at the end of this program tonight, okay? Click on your photo icon. Or if you're on a computer, click on this. Put your first and last name. This is an old version of my profile. I put my first and last name in this box. I put my title in this box. And then I put my headline in this box. That's what my friend Don did when he did his LinkedIn profile. He put his first and last name in the first name. He put his title and he put his headline like that. Okay, we've talked about one part of the headline. How do you create that banner photo that comes behind your picture? So again, you go back to that edit button, and you can only do this on a desktop. Can't do it on a mobile phone. Click here, click here. Let me explain why I'm using Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer was the book my late mother would read to all her fourth grade students. So I thought if I was going to create something that I could show how to do something, why not use Tom Sawyer? So I created a fake account for about a week and took these pictures. And so this is Tom Sawyer's backdrop photo. Look at here, this is the length across, 1400 pixels and 425 down. Believe it or not, and maybe you know about this, Kelly, there's a photo, an online editing site called Canva, canva.com, that you can create this, but remember these sizes, 1400 pixels across, 425 pixels down. This is what it looks like after we finish the first part. And here's what it looks like on his mobile phone. Again, headlines are going to evolve and change, okay? So make sure you stay current with that. And on that last bullet, think of an elderly aunt or somebody that doesn't know you, you know, that you don't see a lot. Ask them to review your headlines and see if that really conveys what you're all about. We're coming down to the last part of tonight's webinar, and we're going to talk about the about summary section and how it's like fishing. Any of you ladies ever fish as a kid?
Yes, sir. Love it. Still do it today.
Gotcha. So you know what that bobber's like with, you put it in the pond, you hope the fish is going to catch the minnow or worm. It's the end of that hook.
That's the best part of fishing.
That is the best part of fishing. So this is your about section. This is what happens when you let LinkedIn dictate what you want, some key skills. You know, Terry, if I had $20 for every time I saw that word demonstrated history, and $20 for every time I saw the strong business development professional, I could buy both of us a new car, not a nice car, maybe a new Honda, with all the money I would accumulate for all the times I've seen that.
We need to start collecting those dollars.
We need to, and they better not be monopoly money, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So
Exactly.
let's talk about the 4 steps that I want you to think about, okay? First of all, what's your short mission statement? If you have thoughts on what that might be, this is the time to share those with us. Jennifer, what do you think would be your short mission statement?
I don't know. I love to teach, but I love empowering other spouses actually to take charge of their own lives. That's my favorite thing that I do.
So I'm hearing you say that I love to empower spouses to take control of their own lives.
Yes, sir.
That would be that'd be a start. You might want to write that down.
Okay.
What about you, Kelly? Any thoughts?
I would think my short mission statement would be basically reaching out to spouses that are in the same predicament as I am, where I'm kind of stuck, trying to navigate their life in the most part, to their goal.
So you're like a family navigator. You help other military family members navigate their through crises and other issues they face, especially when people are on deployment, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's just a thought. Again, all these statements can evolve. And how about you, Leslie? What do you think would be a good mission statement?
I'm kind of along the same lines in that I would want to help spouses get to a place where they can thrive in this military life that we live as spouses, and be able to do that whether they work full-time, whether they're at home, whether they're full-time volunteers, wherever they fit into this life cycle. I would love to be able to help them navigate it in a way that they feel like they have a purpose and that they can give back in a meaningful way.
All good thoughts. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so you see what I mean by the short mission statement, right, ladies?
Yes.
Okay, now the goal. What's your goal? Your goal is, I heard, empower other spouses, okay? Help organizations reach out to them. Those might be some aspects to think about.
Now, one of my goals is to always be an advocate for military families. So no matter if I'm staying home or if I'm working a job, I'm going to continue to advocate for the best resources for military families. So that would encompass my mission statement and goal.
Okay, and then the next step is this one, which is the call to action. So I know you kind of, sort of, Leslie, if I can be helped you with family, military family issues, please contact me. That could be something to think about. Or something like that, right?
Yep, I agree.
And then lastly, what are your key skills? Okay. These are all the skills that you would put at the bottom with the word key skills or summary of expertise. But that's the last of those slides. And that's the end of my first program.